It's been a full decade since Hayao Miyazaki's previous final film, The Wind Rises. While his latest, The Boy and the Heron, or How Do You Live, came out in Japan back in July, it was released here in the United States today, so it was with great anticipation that I got to see it last night. And I really enjoyed it. The Boy and the Heron is in many ways reminiscent of Miyazaki's previous work, but in others, a bit of a departure. After losing his mother in a World War II air raid in Tokyo, the 12-year-old boy Mahito struggles to adapt to a different life in his affluent family's house in the countryside with a new stepmother. When a talking heron tells him that his mother is still alive, he ventures into a mysterious abandoned tower and ends up on a dreamlike journey that symbolizes his own emotional journey. The film explores themes of death and the afterlife, grief, letting go of anger and resentment. It's surreal, beautiful, meandering, surprisingly funny, and feels deeply personal, with Mahito's story closely paralleling Miyazaki's own life. I think it goes without saying that this film was visually stunning, as all Miyazaki films are, but to me this one takes it to a whole new level. It's been in production since Miyazaki started storyboarding in 2016, and every bit of time and effort that went into it shows on the screen, through the detail in the animation. Right at the start, the movie bombards you with a series of shots where the principal characters and hordes of other people clamber to secure safety for themselves and their loved ones. And each individual person, from the foreground to the background, is rendered in full detail and 24 frame per second animation, such that your eye almost doesn't know what to focus on, spoiled for choice. The animation is also at times much more abstract and impressionistic than I've seen before in a Ghibli film. In the very first shot, Tokyo citizens step out of their houses in the middle of the night, and you can just barely make out the fuzzy silhouettes of the people, but it's so dark that it gives you that very real feeling where you're in the dark at the limit of what your eyes can see and you really need to concentrate to make anything out. It's a small moment, but it jumped out to me as something that I haven't seen done in animation before. During the handful of half-dream sequences, but also in the scene near the start, which was featured in the trailer, where Mahito rushes through the flames and crowds of people to try to find his mother, the lines and forms of Mahito's body and the people around him become so loose, flowing, and gestury that it feels like they're almost disintegrating and blending into each other and the fire. In terms of plot and character, this film also felt a bit abstract and unconventional. There's a lot you have to infer about the characters, including Mahito, just by observing the way they act. And the plot itself, while certainly having a cohesive through line and set of themes, at times can feel more like a set of smaller vignettes as Mahito explores different parts of this fantasy world, guided by different characters he meets along the way. This is a movie that really does expect you to pay attention, and if you're going in with the expectation of a straightforward, conventional, child-friendly adventure story, you may end up feeling a bit confused and possibly even a little bored by it. But if you go in ready to just soak it all in and allow the film to take you where it will, I think you'll get a lot more out of it. I will say that there were some elements of character development and world building towards the end that felt a little unearned and forced to me, though it's possible that there were some cues earlier on in the movie that I didn't quite pick up on, and maybe I'd get even more out of it on a second viewing. I did only watch it last night, so it needs a bit more time to marinate. While it is more abstract and unconventional than previous Miyazaki films, at the same time it does also play all the hits from beloved films like Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, Princess Mononoke, etc. You have the quiet, determined protagonist, the mysterious, powerful character who leads you hurriedly by the hand through a confusing but wonderful fantasy world, the silly, slightly annoying little guy who talks in a gravelly voice, the gaggle of cute but slightly unsettling old ladies, and of course, the question that I know is on your mind: does this movie have 1,000 cute little creature guys that climb around on the protagonist and make little noises? And to that I would say, do you know who you're dealing with here? This is a Hayao Miyazaki movie. You know there are 1,000 cute little creature guys. I watched the dubbed version, which, in my opinion at least, is the preferred way to watch Ghibli movies as an English speaker, because I don't want to take my eyes off the animation for even a second to look at the subtitles, and I know that G-Kids always knocks it out of the park with the dubs. And this one was no different. The whole cast does a great job, but by far the standout performance to me was Robert Pattinson as the Heron. His voice is creepy, funny, and completely unrecognizable. It almost feels like on the set of The Lighthouse, Pattinson swallowed up Willem Dafoe Kirby style and absorbed his powers, because if I were to guess who had voiced the Heron if I didn't know, I probably would have guessed Willem Dafoe.
Save me, Mahito! What exactly are you?
who weirdly also has a small part in the movie. Christian Bale also, of course, gave a great performance as Mahito's dad, and it was a surprising but welcome change to hear him talking in his actual accent instead of putting on an American one. Maybe they didn't want him to sound too much like Howl from Howl's Moving Castle? I don't know. As I mentioned, this movie was much funnier than any Miyazaki movie as far as I can remember, with multiple actual laugh-out-loud moments, and the dub complements them well. The music serves the film well too, but is fairly understated, lacking any big, sweeping, memorable themes or anything. I wouldn't be surprised if Miyazaki ends up coming out with another masterpiece when he's 90, and indeed I think he's mentioned already that he's working on the next one, but in some ways The Boy and the Heron feels like a culmination of his entire career. An artistic and impressionistic journey through time and space, it quickly became one of my top films of the year. And I'm not sure if it manages to take the top spot as my favorite Miyazaki movie, but it's certainly close, and probably in the top 3. Thanks for watching, and thanks for subscribing if you feel compelled to do so.